how to, on our agenda, we have how to design a lesson, blog, or other form of write-up. Lisa added, I'm guessing Lisa added this. Um, so we have technical guidance on how to write a lesson up on the up in the docs, and I think what this was based on a discussion uh, Lisa had with Matt and I about more generally like how to write a lesson, like in general terms, not just the
How to
technical.
design a lesson.
Yeah, how to design a lesson, like from a learning content perspective. Like, yeah, I want to teach this topic. How do I break it down into subtopics and stuff like that? Um, uh, so I think she's right. That's something that needs to be done. Um, do you? I mean, how do you envision that? Like the size of that? Like, do you think that would be just a few pages in the docs, or could this be like a 20-page like sort of tutorial on how to design a lesson? Like, what are you thinking?
Um, I was assuming just a few pages, 2 or 3 pages at most. But I think that having it written would be good. It might also be nice to do a stream about it. Um, and actually, Olivier, since you're since you're a teacher, it'd be great if we could interview you.
I can try to help, but I'm not sure I have a recipe for that.
Well, since we actually, I don't think the other items um, will take up a huge amount of time. So what I was thinking, Olivier, was you know how our lessons are broken into stages. So so let's say we had let's say the bash topic, right? There could be like a less like intro to bash, which we have a fundamentals thing called intros to bash, and there could be so many stages there. And then we could have an intermediate bash with other stages, etc. So you could have multiple lessons per sort of skill level for a topic, and then the stages themselves can. I've thought about this. There's really a couple of ways that you can organize things. Like one way, look, what I'm trying to do with the bash lesson is, we start with like the most basic topic, and then we do a slightly more complicated topic. Like I started with variables, and then I went to uh, geez, I don't know. Did I do positional parameters? Is number 3 or? Well, anyways, the point is, the content in one stage is used in the following stage, and the following stage, and then you're building something up as you're approaching the end. Let's say you have like 4 or 5 stages, and you've built something up, and then in the end you have like a useful script that someone could use that's built on the concepts from the 5 stages, which built on top of each other. Like that's one way you could organize the content, and another way is you could just you could do that loosely. So you could have some intermediate stages where the content is not necessarily reused, or you could have several stages where the content isn't really reused, but it's good, like just so sort of stages that could, and that are optional, or and sometimes there's lessons topics where it doesn't make sense to build, right? You just sort of have a variety of lessons, like YAML. You don't necessarily want to build. Well, you could do a build up in YAML, but let's say YAML right now we have one sort of like how to build a list in YAML. Then you could have a how to build a dictionary, and just sort of these separate, not necessarily connected stages, but just covering several basic topics. I mean, there's a couple ways that I guess you could like create an information flow, or gather information up in the lesson across those stages. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I was thinking about something about the duration, the estimated duration of the lab, something that maybe gives an indication of effort for people that are going to try it. And so maybe that's something that isn't really obvious at the moment. You don't really know when you start how long it will take, how many stages and stuff. So maybe about the fact that maybe you can skip some steps, or you just have to follow a very precise continuum. But I don't know if there is some general advice or general strategy. For instance, I was wondering what happens if you go back, if you move on, fine, but if you want to go back, does reconfiguration happen?
Yeah.
So would you lose some stuff if you were going back, stuff like that? So maybe that's not really simple to devise. I don't know.
Yeah, the lessons are reconfigured. When you go from one stage to the next, the containers are rebuilt
Mm.
from one stage to the next.
In general, I would say that what I tell you is that active learning, experimentation, tinkering, and so on makes you learn more efficiently. So I would think that the first steps would be kind of copy paste, automated, and after some time you would have some kind of challenge, problem solving, and maybe we could think about some kind of validation process that helps you figure out whether you're on the right track or if you made a mistake, something like that. So the initial steps are probably unambiguous, and well, the validation is automatic because there's no invention. And then at the end or later, there could be some kind of exercise where we could embed some ways of self-evaluation or automated evaluation, something like that. So that's the kind of stuff I'm doing when I'm teaching. Like, there's a progression and there's a kind of challenge because I want to motivate the students with a kind of puzzle or something that they want to achieve. But I'm pretty sure it depends on, in other contexts where people are just paid to attend the training, it's probably less challenging, and some automated stuff is probably the norm. I don't know. So I'm not sure what kind of ambition you can have in lessons. Probably some kind of level that you advertise in advance, saying, okay, that's a basic one, you just have to copy paste, and then more advanced ones where you say, oh, at the end you will have a challenge to solve.
Yeah, so there's a few things that we will be doing well, when we started engaging the web team that we've been working with to kind of revamp the site. A lot of the mock-ups they've shared, which we should post. We should post the mock-ups that we've worked out with them. They're really good, but what we've discovered in some of the mock-ups that they've shared is lesson metadata that we don't currently have, but we could easily create. And a lot of what you said are exactly things that we sort of identified, because what they did was they redid like the lesson catalog page, for instance. And so they added a bunch of little widgets for filtering based on all kinds of different criteria. And they included things that they thought would make sense, but they didn't know if it was possible. So they just added a bunch of buttons and knobs. And one of them was lesson duration. I think another one was lesson like difficulty or complexity or something like that. So yeah, we're on board with that. I mean, like I said, I think the first step is getting the web front end built to use that kind of stuff. But we can, in parallel, we can certainly add that data to to the data models in Syringe. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Mm. Also, is there any idea of dependencies and prerequisites and stuff like that?
Yep, that's there. If you go to the advisor today and you type in a topic and you select a lesson, it does that whole like strengths finder kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's where that comes from. It identifies the prerequisites for that lesson, and then it looks for those lessons and it identifies those prerequisites, and it just keeps building that tree of prerequisites basically, and then it flattens it, and those are the list of things you should know.
Okay, I've just shared a link in the Zoom group chat, which is Dungeons and Developers. You can have a look at that maybe. It's, I guess, a wonderful illustration of a way to present some gamification of a curriculum where basically you would learn web development, and you can perform that like an adventure game, a role-playing game, where your character will improve its skills. And I guess the gamification, the graphical representation was quite neat. So you can have a look at that link. Maybe that can give some ideas, inspiration.
Yeah, very cool. One thing that might be relevant to this conversation also is totally. I had this on my to-do list for a while, so I just did it or started it last night. Opened a work in progress PR for a separate page on curriculum reviewer documentation. So right now, the curriculum contribution pages have that like four-step cycle of like open issue, that kind of thing. And then at the tail end, there's this like really awkward section that's like, oh, by the way, here are the things that reviewers will look at when they look at your contribution, just to make sure that it's good quality. So not only is it out of place, it's also very abbreviated, just because I didn't want to take up a ton of space. So I have a PR open that breaks that out into a separate page. Most of it, well, it's about half of those bullet points are technical, like does it do X, Y, Z, that kind of thing, or just basically about Antidote specific stuff. Like, are they using all of the optional features within Antidote that makes sense? Because there are a lot of things in Antidote that you don't have to use, but might be a good idea based on what the goals of the learner are, and it's the job of the reviewer to make sure that they're aware of them, because not everybody has the time to read every single page in the docs to make sure they're using all those features. So that's a good example. But there's also some bullet points in there that kind of align with the discussion we're having right now, which is is this lesson laid out properly? Does it take a decent amount of time to get through? Is it laid out in a way that just kind of like logically makes sense? So what I can do, I'll finish my work here. I'll finish my work on that with the understanding that it's not going to be finished. But yeah, either Olivier or somebody else that does know sort of has more experience with laying things out logically, like the non-technical side of things that we're discussing. I would love to see either a second page that focuses on that, or maybe just take that. I'll break it up into sections and sort of make it obvious where things could go. But if somebody could take that and run with it in the ways that aren't Antidote specific, that'd be pretty cool. And then what we can do is just like I'm doing currently in the curriculum docs, I'll say, hey, here's a link to the reviewer, the standards for all curriculum reviewers. You should be familiar with this, even if you're not a reviewer, even if you're just building a lesson. You should take a look at this, because this is what people are going to be sort of judging your contribution by, like, to make sure that things are high quality. So it'd be great if we could like sort of have that be a separate thing, which is what I'll do that in the PR, but then with the full understanding that it needs to grow.
is there, do you think this should be, are there any mini projects that this would relate to, Matt?
I don't think so. Like, what were you thinking?
I wasn't, no, I'm just wondering, I wasn't thinking anything. It was just a question.
Oh, okay. Yeah, not that I could think of. I mean, this is kind of a need, like, you know, regardless. I mean, the mini projects that we've been doing are for like big breaking changes. I think this is, you know, more just like um, general guidance on like what makes a good to be honest, I don't even think there is a mini project that isn't just about the Antidote platform, because it's kind of what they came from. Like the whole mini project concept came from the V1.0 plan for Antidote. So really doesn't have anything to do with the curriculum at all, except, you know, the images work kind of deals with the curriculum, but it doesn't have to. I mean, that's just still kind of a separate sort of breaking change. So I don't think so. I think everybody that's working on a mini project should become aware of, should definitely be familiar of like what the current community standard is for like a good quality lesson. I think that should be relevant across the board, to be honest. But before they can do that, we obviously have to get better at articulating what that means, which is what I think these conversations are trying to do.
Okay. All right, you know what? Then well, I guess we'll put it on the list of things that we need to do. You know, in order to create, we'll put it on a to-do list for the for under the Antidote repository, right? That's the docs.
Mm-hmm.
We'll put I don't know, a to-do there to add that. Open an issue. We'll put some initial thoughts in there, and then we'll go from there.
By the way, as you mentioned, the mini projects, do you think it would be possible to add some kind of link to the mini projects that are inside the proposals repo from the top level projects GitHub tool, like we have 040, 041, and 050?
Oh,
and
yeah.
maybe there could be some kind of link that is not a version, but is just a pointer that, or an indirect pointer to the mini projects. Because every time I'm looking for the mini projects, I'm getting lost. So maybe that could help. I don't know. Or maybe there's another place that is better suited. I don't know.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. I've actually been kind of trying to think about where to put that. So yeah, yeah, because it's even though the mini projects will last a while, I expect. I mean, they already have kind of, even though we haven't really finished any of the drafts yet, which is, you know, mostly on me. I expect that they'll still be ephemeral for some definition of ephemeral. So the docs probably isn't the right call for that. I know you didn't suggest that. I'm kind of going through the ideas in my head that I have made.
Yeah,
so.
just to make it easier to find it from
Yeah.
top of the organization.
Sure. Yeah, I can do that. I'm sold on the projects idea. I got to figure out how to lay that out, because that's you know, they're not really. I mean, like, are you thinking like we would use the projects to actually do the project management of each mini project? I mean, we could do that. That kind of makes sense, to be honest.
Yeah, it's the kind of Kanban dashboard.
Yeah.
Versus.
So like maybe like one mini project per, or one GitHub project per mini project. Is that what you're thinking? Like, would that be good?
I don't know. No, not yet. If people haven't started working on that, I'm not sure. I don't know. Anyway,
because then we would be knocking out two birds with one stone, right? Like you'd have your link to each from an obvious place, and then we'd also be able to use that for the actual project management. And what we can do, in fact, you can add a little card there that's not an issue and just say, hey, we haven't started work here, not yet, attend our stand-ups, and sort of leave it at that until the work starts.
Mhm.
All right. Anything more on that?
I saw, Olivier, you mentioned you were going to make an announcement.
Yeah, I was. I wanted to announce that I have two groups of two students that are going to work on Antidote Matters as part of their end of school projects. And one is linked to what we've been discussing so far, which is integration with learning management system, LMS. So the idea that I documented in, I have to find my link. I documented it in the community forum. Again, I'm lost, too many tabs open. And here I have it.
I did note your links. I put them I think we discussed putting all of that in maybe its own its own mini project.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So,
I'll commit that and push it when I can.
Yeah. So two students will be working on that idea of integration with a learning management system. So
Cool.
they have not started yet. I've just had their names from yesterday, and I have to do the first meeting with them. My goal would be that they are in direct interaction with the project as soon as possible, if it's possible, if they want to do that, because they are probably afraid of interaction with an open source project in real life, but I have to make them comfortable in doing so at some point in time. And we'll see if that happens. And so so it can be related to what we've been discussing, because if we say that we want to measure progress in a lesson in a formal way, that could be tracked, of course, in a learning management system outside of Antidote or in connection to Antidote. So that's the first mini project, or the first project I have for my students. And the other one is more about security and what I call the hardening, I think, yeah, options for securing Linux containers, stuff like that. So it was around Kata containers and KubeVirt and Firecracker and stuff like that. So that one project is probably more about bibliographical work, trying to test, to assess the risks maybe around the labs. And
yeah, I think you might have just made Cloud Toad very happy, because that's sort of his thing right now. He's working on those images.
Yeah. So this one is a bit more open maybe than the former one. I don't have a kind of reference. I'm not a security expert myself, so it's basically open, and maybe they can talk to Cloud Toad and see his concerns and so on.
Yeah, I'm not I actually, I view myself as a security expert because I keep them employed. I am an expert at security people.
And making sure they have jobs.
Yes. As Brocade IT will attest, I posted Slack tokens to GitHub on more than one occasion. And they were not pleased with me. I'm like, look, I'm sorry.
So to give you an idea, it's around between 200 and 250 hours in theory of effort that they have to provide on those projects for like 2.5 months. So it depends pretty much on the quality of the students, their motivation, the appeal they have for the topic. So I don't expect much to be done, but who knows? We'll see.
Sure. Well, that's cool. That's really cool.
Okay. Well, what we'll do is we'll set up a we can set up a Zoom call at a time that makes sense for you
Mhm.
and your students. I mean, if I don't know, if and it's fine. You're 7 hours ahead of me, I believe.
It's 5:30 now.
Yep, you're 7 hours. So I guess what I'm saying is, whenever it is you meet with your students, just let me know. If it's if it's 9 a.m. your time, I'll get up at 2 a.m. to
No,
make
no,
sure
no,
that I'll talk to them.
no. That ain't worth.
Okay, I'm just putting out the offer.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right, that's a great idea, by the way. I like that. We're it was this morning when I should have been doing community things. I was actually looking at how to build a custom kernel and build different. There's so many ways to do that, and to build an image from that custom kernel and so on. It's pretty interesting, how all that works and happens. But I'll for sure just send me a message either on the forums or
Mhm.
what have you, and then we'll
I have a meeting with them tomorrow to, yeah, give them the first elements of the first directions and so on. So I'll mention that you're looking forward to know more, and we'll see if we can arrange that either later this week or next week.
All right. Thursday is booked for me, pretty solid.
Hmm.
Just so you know.
Okay. Well, you're on IRC now, so I can just instruct them to go on IRC, and you will meet them there.
Yeah, I am on. Well, yeah, I always haven't. I don't know why we didn't do an IRC channel before. You can do private chat in IRC. So the next. I'm sorry. Is there anything else around that your announcement, which is great, by the way?
No, nothing more.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's exciting.
You're welcome.
Well, it is cool. Like this is well, I'll tell you why. We have we partner with Ansible, and they recently got some new hires too, and that they're going to be able to say, hey, works X amount of hours on this stuff with us. So it's good whenever people have resources, they can they can redirect and help us, and it's something we can report back, and it's really meaningful to our management when they see community engagement like that.
Right.
We consider it a team win. So free range routing is finally working. There was a lot of yak shaving. It's Matt's gonna have a look at it and merge it. It's soon, but it now launches, and this little 3-node network. It forms BGP neighbors and passes loopback based routes between them, and that all ping and work. So this is really good, that it does this. The good news is that the chunk of work involved, one of the largest chunk of the work involved with getting that to work, is precisely exactly the same work that needs to be done just to have a regular Debian image running in a VM. And in terms of um, setting it up so that it'll it automatically, has the antidote user, it mounts the lesson directory, um, there's a consistent interface naming on every boot, etc. All that is done. So we'll have a Debian image soon, which leads me to the next topic, which is there's a blog about the current image creation process that's in the, what does that say? Debian. Yeah, I am a huge Debian fan.
I don't know if you
Um,
can see my T-shirt, but I wear a Debian T-shirt today, so cool.
I love Debian. It's my favorite distribution. I'm a little disappointed. I mean, it is what it is. They're going to go to whatever the current thing is. So they went with System D 6 years ago now, and I'm not a huge fan of System D. And there's a thing called Devuan, which is Debian based, and it uses the System 5 init system instead of System D, and it's actively maintained. And they just released their Buster release. So if you're not a big fan of, if you liked Debian before System D, Devuan is Debian, what Debian would be today without System D. Anyways, so I created a blog post it's in the NRE blogs repository about the current image creation process. It's not posted yet. We just need some people to review it and provide feedback, and then I can make some edits. I'm going to have a diagram I'm going to make accompanying that sort of, it explains in text, the blog post explains, if we want to create an image, it starts with, actually creating a virtual machine that can be running QEMU. So the process of creating that, then you have to create a Docker file for, that launches that with QEMU. And then that's like sort of the first stage, and that's where you add the users and all that stuff. And then you go to the second stage, which is at the time a lesson is launched. The second stage actually is where wow, there's heavy bass there. Someone have thunder or lightning near them?
I was scrolling my mouse. Maybe that's what you heard.
Yeah, I don't know. That's crazy. It's like boom and bass coming, like it sounds like thunder or something in the background.
Oh man, it's DJ Oswald mixing up some sick beats with my mouse pad.
So in the second stage, we actually specify how in a lesson those images are connected. And so that's where the number of interfaces that are created are specified, as well as how the image is accessed, via SSH or, soon VNC. Then there's a third stage where which is once the image is launched, you have to actually configure, applications and system services and those interfaces, and then that's where the final configuration of the image happens right before it's presented to the user. And so I walk through all three of those stages in this blog post, and then there's going to be an associated diagram for that, and it's going to be, it sort of explains all that.
You said you're working on a diagram for that?
Yeah, I want it to look good. And then it'll be revised once we automate all of that. So that's out there for anyone to review and have a look at it. It's not like it's super philosophical blog post. It's just sort of a technical walkthrough of the process. So as it is today. So barring any catastrophically wrong content in that blog post, that should be published on the 7th, on Monday.
Okay, and the text, other than the diagram you want to create, the text is good to go from your perspective?
I think so. I think so, but I would like somebody to read it and review it.
Yeah, that's what I meant, like ready for review, basically.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I wasn't sure because you added a work in progress label. I didn't want to step on your toes.
I did, the work in progress thing doesn't make sense to me for blog posts because it's a work in, and I'll tell you why. There's always mistakes that are made inside the blog post, and then you need someone to read them and then point out the mistakes. I've never written a perfect blog post on first pass.
Oh, sure, sure. No, the reason the thing I was bringing up, this is kind of true across the board for PRs anyway, is when you open a PR, there's a drop down. You can say create a draft pull request. Basically, what that means is don't waste your time reviewing this because I know it's not done. Like there's a bunch of stuff that I still want to do. I meaning like the PR creator. Um, it's just a way of having your work be, sort of like inspectable prior to you saying like, yes, it's totally done, which I think is always a good thing. And then when you take it out of draft, there's a button on the bottom. If you create a draft PR, there's a button on the bottom that says, mark as ready for review. What that does is it sends a notification to all the reviewers. Is like, hey, now I think this is more or less finished. That doesn't mean it's ready to publish. It just means I have done what I needed to do. I think that it's ready for people to review it and get it to that final stage. And so when I see work in progress, I think, because it used to be that GitHub didn't have that feature. So the way that people would do that, well, from a logistics perspective, is we would like use labels or add a WIP to the title, something like that. And that would be an indication like, hey, don't waste your time reviewing this because I know it's not finished. And then when you would remove that and then you would send it to folks and be like, hey, this is ready to review. The whole GitHub draft concept makes that a lot easier because it actually sends explicit notifications rather than relying on people because you don't get notified when labels are added or removed, or when the title changes and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, when I see work in progress, that's what I think. It's probably my background because that's kind of how we used GitHub. But anyway, that's why I wanted to get clarification on how you meant to use that label.
Okay. Yep. That's fine. I don't have to. I won't. I mean, again, yeah. I don't even know. I'll remove the work in progress label. It's fine. By the way, that thunder was at my house.
Wow.
It is super loud. And I thought it was coming through my headphones. I couldn't tell if the bass was from my headphones, but it's not. It's actually happening outside my window.
Insert like token movie moment. He's right behind me, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's no one behind me.
Just the toad.
Yeah. The wooden toad.
Yeah, I love that toad. It stinks, but I like it. It smells like foam. It's some kind of awful plastic foam. I think that is everything at the moment. I have an order that is created, and I'm talking to Sticker Giant at the moment to get it mailed to France because their form for putting an address in for France makes no sense. And I'm trying to figure it out. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all, actually. So I have some emails going back and forth on how to fill this out to send it to a Certix address.
Okay.
They require a regular zip code, and then after you put that in, they tell you when you put a regular zip code in, they can't be mailed via Certix. And then it removes the Certix line I added. So I'm like, I don't know if it matters that much, but I'm trying to talk to them about that. Does it matter, Olivier, if it goes to the regular address or the Certix address?
I don't know. Never had any bad experience, but so I don't know. It's a regular address. We have the parking lots and the entry of the school there. So normally I would expect the delivery wagon to find its way, but who knows?
Okay, those get shipped hopefully soon. The last thing is that I had, it just popped into my head actually, and what was that? Oh Oh my gosh, it just popped into my head. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, I'll put it on the agenda for next time if I think of it. It wasn't anything urgent. Man, I hate it when that happens. All right. That was everything we had on the agenda. It's getting upwards on the hour anyways. If there's anything else anyone would like to discuss at all, is there, I should say.
Nope.
All right then. Then I'll call time of death at 10:48 Central Time, and thanks for joining. And we'll see. Oh, I am going to open up. That's what it was. I'm going to open up a wiki. This is important for next week's a wiki post for next week's agenda immediately following this call. So if anybody has any items, please start adding them as soon as you can for next week. And that was it. So, anyways, thanks for joining, and we'll talk to you next week.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
See you.
Ciao.